get to step 12, and it's a long way. We started at the first step in our review. And the first step was the foundation of all of this, and before tonight, in talking about the 12th step, we're going to get it right around, because this thing just goes right around from 1 to 12 and 12 back to 1. But we begin at the first step. The foundation of recovery was, what is the problem? And as we said, this is, I think it's the greatest thing on the face of the earth for an alcoholic. Was Alcoholics Anonymous, because Alcoholics Anonymous is about the only place where a drunk can find out what's wrong with him. You know, every place else a drunk goes, they tell him what to do. Alcoholics Anonymous tells him what's wrong with him, and then he'll know what to do. But I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I was on a 12-step call, again, through another alcoholic. About the only way an alcoholic can find out where he is through another alcoholic, you know. I could identify with this man. And I found out in the first step the exact nature of my problem. The first step says we're powerless over alcohol. And our lives have become unmanageable. And it talks about the two factors which make me powerless. I had a physical allergy to alcohol. I was an abnormal drinker. They called me a lot of other things, but really that's what I was. I like what a guy says, that's a nice word for what they used to call me. Yeah. But I was an abnormal drinker. I did not drink like so-called normal temperate drinkers. When I took a drink, something occurred within me that did not occur in these people, because I was allergic to alcohol. When I took a drink, you know, I had a phenomenon of I had a craving of alcohol. And this craving was a manifestation of this allergy. When I took a drink, this craving would start, and the doctor said I would go through the well-known spree. And once I took a drink, all my life, I can't remember ever taking a drink without immediately wanting another drink, and another drink, and another drink, and another drink. And this is still what amazes me about social drinkers today, that they don't crave alcohol. They take one, and they may not take another one, but they don't want no more. In fact, they tell us when they take a drink, it really makes them, after a couple of drinks, it becomes nauseous to them. It makes them kind of dizzy, and it gives them a sense of being out of control. And it's really an uncomfortable feeling, and that's the way you should feel if you put some bad stuff in you like alcohol, because alcohol is a toxic drug. And the body normally lets us know when they don't like what we put in it. But the alcoholic's body, like a guy I know of North Carolina, he said everybody has got an alcohol strainer. You know, everybody is made, when they come here on the face of this earth, they got equipment to strain alcohol out, except the alcoholic, and his is busted. We have a busted strainer. And once I take a drink of alcohol, I do not feel nauseous and dizzy and out of control. When I take a drink of alcohol, I get a lift. When I take a drink of alcohol, I get a sense of being in control. And immediately I have a craving for a second drink. So I reach over and take another drink. And when I take that second drink, I put two in there, now it's double. So I crave harder. So I take another one and another one and another one. I go through the well-known spree and get in a lot of trouble, drink too much, I embarrass myself, I do something. I always did something. From the very first drink, very first night, I went beyond what I would have done. And every time in my life. And I would emerge like every alcoholic down at the bar. When I quit drinking, I said, I will never do that again. But that wasn't my main problem. My main problem was in my mind. I had a mental obsession. See, alcohol did something for me that it didn't do for those people. I had this all my life. The doctor says I was restless and irritable and discontent. You know, I just didn't fit in. I just didn't feel just as good about myself as I seemed to be. Always there was something missing in my life. And somewhere along the early, when I was about 18 years old, I took this first drink, you know, things came together. I remember that night very vividly. That's what the doctor said. I remember my first drink. I don't know, that's not a prerequisite to being alcoholic, but I don't remember my first banana split. It didn't do nothing for me. I don't remember my first Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, or pork chop. I don't remember none of those. But I remember my first drink. I remember the people I was with, what brand it was, where we was at, and I remember it. So the doctor says, we remember the sense and ease and comfort that came at once by taking a few drinks of alcohol. And so it must have meant something to me. When I took those few drinks, this is the thing that stuck in my mind and was burned into my mind. And you know, it was so strong that even with all the pain and suffering I went through and the humiliation from alcohol, after coming off of one of those things and after getting into trouble and all these situations, this sense of ease and comfort that alcohol gave me, I remember that stronger than I did all the pain. I mean, it was so strong that it would push out all the pain. Years and years of pain. And the only thing I could think of was this sense of ease and comfort. And so I would believe that lie, and this was what would make me take that first drink. And once I put that first drink in my system, it set off the phenomenal craving, and I was in a lot of trouble. So long as I had that in my mind, I was powerless over alcohol. The main problem was in my mind, this obsession, remembering that sense of ease and comfort. So once we have these two things, make us powerless over alcohol. The second step is very simple, and it's based on the first step. You know, if we're powerless, the solution is power. And obviously, this power would have to work in the mind. We can live with the allergy. So therefore, the second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And if we could remove this obsession, if we weren't restless and irritable and discontent, we would never think about this sense of ease and comfort, because we would be already comfortable. So the second step talks about, we believe this is the solution to this problem. And then we come to the real program of recovery. You know, once we do this is a foundation, and if every alcoholic can get to this point, he hasn't done anything at this time, but first time he can see where he's at. Step one is what's going on with him, and he has a solution. Now, the main thing now is to find this power. You know, if you're powerless over here, and the solution is power, then the main job is, well, let's find this power. How do we find this power? This is the main purpose of the book, and the program is to enable us to find a power greater than ourselves, which will solve our problems. So the first step in finding this thing is a decision. All action begins with decision. And he says, you know, if we have a decision, we can decide, we got to look at these things and decide, do we want to be powerless or do we want this power? We have to decide between these things. And we make a decision. If we make a decision, all of us will choose the power. And if we choose this, then we have to give up certain things. You know, we have to give up our will. You know, we alcoholics have got a lot of that. You know, that's one thing about alcoholism, that to recover from alcoholism, we got to give up probably the two things that we love the most. Number one is alcohol, and number two is self-will. Boy, that's tough. That's a tough decision. So we make a decision here to turn over our will, and this is simply our directions of our lives, over the care of God as we understand Him. And then we go to work to do this. There are certain works got to be done. So we have the action steps, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the action steps that carry out the decision. And as we said earlier, You know, we alcoholics are our self-will run riot, our book says. There are certain things within us that block us off from God. Our book, throughout it talks about this thing is within us. God is within man. All great philosophers talk about that. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental conception of God. Many years ago, a man said the kingdom of God is within man. All philosophers talk. We have some guidance. We have some directions. And we know how to live. I've never seen an alcoholic that didn't know how to live. He didn't know right from wrong. But he simply seemed like he couldn't get it to work. Now, I always didn't know what to do. And the only time I used it was after the fact. You know, the next morning I said, doggone it, you know you shouldn't have done that. That was the story of my life. You know what I mean? But I just couldn't live with it up front. It was there. But it was covered up. You know, it was covered up by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, by worldly things and my emotions, but it was always there. So step 4 is all about carrying out the decision. If I wanted God to direct my life, there are certain things within me that I have to get rid of. And step 4 is all about inventorying and analyzing these things. And he talked about, we went through resentments. And I saw how these things dominated my life. And I saw how these things controlled and run my life on a daily basis. I talked about fears. We talked about our sex conduct of the past. And we listed and analyzed those things. In step 5, we learned more about them by discussing them with another human being, with God, ourselves, another human being. And it improved on the information that we got in step 4. And once we got these things out and looked at them and seen the damage and effect of our lives and how they were blocking us, then in step 6, we become willing to get rid of them. And in step 7, we ask God to remove them. So in these 4 steps, we went to work on ourselves. And then the next phase of steps, 8 and 9, talks about our relationship with others. These are things, too, that have grown out of self, the damage of the past. So in 8 and 9, we worked on our relationship with others. And then in step 10, we went back and continued to work on our relationship with God. We continued to work on ourselves. We continued to work on our relationship with others. And we went back in the process of step 10 and continued to clean up all 3 general areas. Once we got these things out of the way and these things that blocked us from God, then in step 11, we were able to receive God into our lives. We were able, for the first time, to carry out the decision in step 3. You know, we said the whole steps are about 3, making a decision to turn over our will, clearing out the things that block us with these steps, and then in step 11, we receive God's will. So it's a changing of directions, from self-directions to God's direction. So step 11 is really the final part, and this is the ultimate area that we come to. Now 12 comes right after 11. Having had. If you had 11, if you are able to receive God's direction, you have had a spiritual experience. But then step 12 tonight says, you know, having had this, now we give it away. Now we have something to give. And I think this is the real strength of probably one of the most vital steps in my life. I said of all these steps, which are all giving steps, they are things that bring to your life. Possibly one of the most single things that affected my life is the 12th step. That actually we grow more through giving than we do through receiving in the first 11. The 12th step is a very big growth step. We grow through giving. And I know when I first come to AA, I didn't know, all of this sounds funny. If you hear it tonight the first time, it's how are you going to grow through giving something away? You know what I mean? But it's been said many times, many thousand years ago, a man said it's more blessed to give than to receive. It's more blessed to give with the 12th step than to receive through all the 11, that we do grow through giving. Now the 12th step is a very precise step in the big book, and reason that I don't know why Bill, I guess he knew the foundation of AA depended on that, because it wasn't but 100 people to begin with, and we can see the power of that, of the million or so people that are sober as a result of 100 people starting the 12th step. And the 12th step is very specific. You know, we read it off, and sometimes we run through it real fast and we don't hear it being read. I like to specifically to look at it, and when we talk about it and get all the words and see what he's saying. He says, having had a spiritual awakening, he says, as the results of these steps. You know, it's there. He didn't say a results, he said as the results. So that means that the 11 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't give you but one thing, the results. A spiritual awakening. You know, and we've said as we went through that, you know, that was a personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism. And if you have a personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism, you don't have to not drink anymore. You are not the same person. You're not the person you were. You have had a change in your life. And Bill said a spiritual experience is very simple. It's no big deal. He said when you can believe, when you can think, when you can feel and you can do things that you couldn't do on your own unaided. And that's very simple, you know. And I think it's quite obvious. You know, people say, well, you know, I can feel things that I couldn't feel before. I can feel love. Before I used to think it was coming in heat, you know, but I can feel love. I can feel concern for another person. Many, many things that I couldn't feel before. I don't believe the same. I used to believe God kept score on you. You know what I mean? And when you got, like I did, so far behind, he just said, well, you out of the game. You know. I used to believe that. Well, I used to believe many of these things. I can do things that I couldn't do before, obviously. The main one, I can stay sober. So, step 12 is the ultimate step. You know, all of these steps are steps in which we take. Bring things to you. All you got to do is work them, and you don't do nothing. The first 11 steps brings all these good things into your life. The 11 steps are all things that we take. We first come in, we just like babies. These are they just give to us. You know? We don't have to do nothing. We work the steps, and the steps bring these things into our lives. The 12th step is a step in which we give. The 11 receive, and through the 12th one we give. You know, we receive from the first 11, and then the 12th, having had, then we can give. You know, many years ago, it was a man said that it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. We get more blessings from giving. And so it all hinges on this 12th, and really the 12th, as we say, when we get down to it and look at it, it's got a lot to do with the first step. You know, the first step, we saw where we were and we got the answer. And I saw where I was through another alcoholic. And in step 2, it says we come to believe, and once we come to believe, that's the beginning. And once we believe, we have to make a decision in step 3. And once the decision, we have to take some actions, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And once we work those steps, we get the promises of the book. We get the promises on page 83 and 84 and 84 and 85. And once these promises are fulfilled, then we know the program works. And the 12th step is saying if you know the program works, if you have gotten results, If you have had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps, then you know it works. You don't believe. You used to believe it's step 2. But if it works, then you know it works. You have faith. And the one who knows, that's the 12th step person, wants you to get to 12 steps, then you know. Now what you know, you are supposed to carry it back to the new man. And he can look at you, and you can't help him know. But by looking at you, he can begin to believe. And he can get started.